Some women spend their lives haunted by a question they cannot name: why does the male mind feel both magnetic and dangerous? A force that pulls them close yet leaves them trembling in its shadow. Carl Jung warned that inside every man lives an abyss, the shadow, the instinctual drives, the hunger for power and meaning. To step into this darkness is to confront truths that most would rather deny. But denial does not erase them, it only leaves one vulnerable to their silent influence. The male psyche is not only shaped by love, reason, or civilization. Beneath the carefully polished exterior lives something far more primal, a secret code written in obsession, ego, and the yearning for dominance. Freud once whispered that man is ruled by drives he scarcely comprehends, and Jung carried the warning further: until a man confronts his shadow, the shadow will direct his life, and he will call it fate. For the woman who encounters this force, it is not simply a matter of attraction, it is a dance with something forbidden, something that awakens both desire and fear. Consider the first forbidden truth: men are not drawn only to beauty, but to what beauty conceals. Mystery, secrecy, and the promise of forbidden knowledge stir something ancient in him. Neuroscience reveals that the brain is wired to fixate on uncertainty. The dopamine system lights up not when the outcome is certain, but when it is unpredictable. In the same way, a woman who seems slightly unknowable captures him more than one who is fully revealed. This is not mere romance, it is a psychological snare, an archetypal echo of Eve offering fruit from the hidden tree. And you, if you understand this, can see that desire is less about the surface and more about the shadow behind the veil. The second forbidden truth: men are enthralled by resistance as much as they are by surrender. His ego wants victory, yet his deeper psyche craves challenge. Evolutionary psychology teaches that scarcity heightens value, what is easily obtained is easily dismissed. But Jung saw something darker at play: the projection of anima, the feminine soul image within him, which often attaches itself to women who resist, who withhold, who mirror back his own unfulfilled longing. When you push away, he does not only see rejection, he feels his own shadow staring back, and the tension consumes him. Watch closely and you will see this paradox everywhere. The more indifferent you appear, the more fiercely he burns, yet when you give too freely, his shadow retreats. It is not cruelty that binds his attraction, but the mystery of something slightly out of reach, a forbidden fruit, glowing on the branch. The third truth is more dangerous still: men are addicted to control, yet terrified of their own lack of it. Power dynamics are not mere social games, they are neurological loops. In moments when he feels dominant, his testosterone rises, feeding confidence and focus. But beneath the mask of strength, most men harbor the haunting fear of collapse, of losing power, of becoming invisible. Jung wrote that the shadow is often projected outward, painted onto others as threat or temptation. A man who fears his own weakness will often seek to dominate, not from strength but from terror of being overpowered. If you've ever seen a man withdraw suddenly after intense closeness, you've glimpsed this fear. He tastes intimacy, then recoils, because true intimacy means loss of control. The pull and push are not random, they are rituals of the shadow at war with itself. The fourth forbidden truth lies in obsession. When a man fixates, it is rarely on the person alone, but on the projection she carries. Mirror neurons fire, imprinting her gestures, her tone, her presence into his nervous system. His mind begins to replay her, not as she is, but as his unconscious demands her to be. This is why some obsessions feel supernatural, because they are not about the woman at all, but about the archetype she awakens. She becomes the carrier of his anima, the vessel of everything he has lost or longs for. Jung warned that this projection is both dangerous and inevitable. It intoxicates, but blinds him to the reality of who she truly is. And you, if you step into that role unknowingly, risk being consumed by his shadow's hunger. For obsession does not see clearly, it only devours. But here lies the unspoken warning: forbidden truths do not only expose men, they test the women who encounter them. For every projection cast, there is a choice: to become the image, or to remain rooted in self, to lose yourself in his shadow, or to watch it dance without letting it swallow you. You might feel it even now, that strange pull toward danger. The way knowledge of his darkness makes him more magnetic, not less. This is not weakness, it is recognition of something ancient, the psyche drawn to fire. But the fire burns differently depending on who holds the match. The male mind is not a puzzle to be solved in daylight. It is a labyrinth of shadows, half-lit corridors where power, ego, and desire twist together. Jung did not warn us to stay away from this labyrinth, only to enter with our eyes open, because once you see the shadow for what it is, you can no longer be seduced by its disguise. The fifth forbidden truth is this: every man wrestles with a hidden war between his ego and his shadow, and it is this war that shapes how he loves, how he leaves, and how he returns. His ego wants to appear strong, rational, untouchable. It thrives on conquest, success, and validation. But his shadow, darker and more primitive, demands recognition. It whispers insecurities. It feeds on envy. It drags him into impulses he cannot explain. When you see a man lash out in pride, or retreat into silence, what you are witnessing is not mere mood, it is the battle of two forces tearing through him. Psychology teaches that repression only makes the shadow stronger. Jung warned that what a man does not face within himself becomes fate. Neuroscience supports this with brutal clarity. Suppressed emotions do not vanish. They hide in the amygdala, the fear center, in neural patterns that erupt when least expected. Anger, jealousy, and despair resurface in explosive, irrational bursts, and when you are near him, you feel this war radiating through his behavior, like a storm he cannot contain. It is here that many women fall into the trap of thinking they can save him, that their love can resolve his war. But love cannot do shadow work for him. You cannot heal what he refuses to confront. The truth is more dangerous. His shadow will pull you into its orbit, demanding that you either join the conflict or walk away from it. The sixth forbidden truth: male desire often masks itself as dominance, but beneath it lies the terror of insignificance. Evolutionary psychology traces this to ancient survival. A man's status once dictated his ability to protect and reproduce. Status was survival. Today, the same circuitry drives him toward achievement, control, and influence. But the shadow side of this is fragility. Strip away his recognition, his place in the hierarchy, and his sense of self collapses. Freud called this the narcissistic wound, the unbearable fear of being irrelevant, unloved, unseen. This is why a man may cling obsessively to power, to validation, or to a woman who makes him feel significant. And it is why he may also destroy the very things that give him meaning, because his fear of insignificance is greater than his ability to receive love. To stand in the presence of this truth is to feel both his hunger and his fragility. The paradox of a man who appears commanding yet trembles at the thought of being forgotten. The seventh and final forbidden truth is the most unsettling: men are not only shaped by the women they desire, but by the shadows of women they cannot have. Jung revealed that the anima, the inner feminine within a man's psyche, often takes shape from unfulfilled longing, a lost love, a withheld affection. Even a fleeting encounter can leave a haunting imprint that shapes how he sees every woman thereafter. His mind does not release these ghosts easily. Neuroscience shows that emotionally charged memories carve deep pathways in the hippocampus, replaying like haunting songs he cannot silence. And so, he becomes haunted not by you, but by what you represent. A fragment of his unfinished self projected outward, chasing wholeness through another's reflection. This is why obsession lingers even when logic says it should fade. This is why detachment feels impossible when he is caught in the labyrinth of his shadow. For you, the danger is clear: to confuse his projection with real intimacy, to believe his obsession is about you when it is about something far older and deeper. But if you understand this, you cannot be consumed. You can see the difference between his shadow's hunger and his true capacity for love. Now consider what these 7 truths mean together. The male mind is not merely logical, not merely emotional. It is a theater of shadows, a labyrinth where dominance, fear, desire, and projection play endlessly. Jung did not warn us to demonize men for this, but to recognize the forces at play. For the woman who steps into this knowledge, there is power, not to control, but to remain unshaken. Most women are pulled blindly into the current of the male shadow. They feel the attraction, the obsession, the dominance, and mistake it for destiny. But the woman who sees clearly understands that these are not chains unless she allows them to be. The darkness is not a prison, it is a mirror. And the truth is this: the shadow cannot be destroyed, only recognized. The man who refuses to see it becomes its slave. The woman who pretends it does not exist becomes its victim. But the woman who sees it clearly, who studies its movements without fear, cannot be touched by it. She is not consumed. She is sovereign. The woman who understands the darkness cannot be controlled by it. Most people assume psychology is about light, about healing, balance, and clarity, but Jung understood that true psychology is also about darkness, the forbidden corners of the mind where instincts and shadows reside, and nowhere is this more dangerous, or more magnetic, than in the male psyche. Picture a man in silence. Outwardly, he seems calm, controlled, a figure of reason, yet inside, his neural pathways are alive with chaos. His limbic system battles his prefrontal cortex, primal drives colliding with rational restraint. He wants connection but fears it. He craves dominance yet secretly dreads exposure. This inner tension is not weakness, it is the blueprint of the male mind. And here is what most women miss: his behavior is not random. The distance, the obsession, the sudden withdrawal, the consuming intensity, each is the voice of a hidden archetype playing through him. Jung mapped these archetypes: the hero who must conquer, the tyrant who must dominate, the lover who craves surrender, and the shadow that sabotages them all. To see this clearly is to pierce the illusion that confuses so many hearts. Neuroscience gives us the language of circuits and chemicals, dopamine loops, testosterone surges, cortisol spikes when threatened. But psychology gives us the myth beneath the data, the eternal battle between what a man pretends to be and what he secretly is. You, standing before him, are not just a woman in his eyes. You are a trigger, a mirror, a symbol around which his inner archetypes fight. This is why male attraction is so often marked by contradiction. He may chase you with fire, then vanish in cold silence. He may hold you close, then look through you as if you are already gone. To the unknowing, this seems cruel, but in truth, it is the psyche at war. His ego wants to possess, but his shadow whispers of weakness, of losing himself in you, of being exposed. He does not flee you, he flees himself. Shadow work reveals a chilling truth: men often hurt not out of malice, but out of fear, fear of dependence, fear of rejection, fear of insignificance. These fears manifest as dominance, as cold detachment, as obsession. Freud would say he is driven by instincts, eros and thanatos, the pull toward life and love, and the pull toward destruction. Jung would say he is ruled by projections, placing onto you everything he cannot admit in himself. And you, unknowingly, may carry the weight of his unfinished battles. You may mistake his fixation for passion, when it is projection. You may believe his withdrawal means rejection, when it is fear of surrender. You may think his dominance is strength, when it is terror disguised. The danger is not in seeing these truths, but in ignoring them. A woman who does not understand them becomes entangled in them, believing she must fix, soothe, or chase. But every chase feeds his shadow. Every attempt to heal him becomes another battlefield where his unconscious wins. To see clearly is to break the spell. Neuroscience calls this metacognition, the ability to step outside the pattern, to observe without being trapped. The moment you recognize his behavior as shadow-driven, not truth-driven, you are no longer a pawn in his labyrinth. There is also something magnetic about the woman who sees without judgment, not the woman who excuses his darkness, but the one who witnesses it with unflinching clarity, because deep in the male psyche, there is a hunger for recognition, for someone to see both the mask and the shadow beneath it, to see him as whole, not just the parts he displays. But here lies the razor's edge: you may see, but you must never lose yourself in what you see. For the greatest danger of the forbidden male mind is not that it will consume him, but that it will consume you. The woman who confuses his shadow for love begins to mirror it back, losing herself in his projections, erasing her boundaries until she is no longer herself but only an echo of his need. This is the fate Jung warned against, becoming the vessel of another's shadow. And yet, the woman who learns to dance with the shadow without becoming it steps into a power most cannot fathom. She can feel the pull of obsession without being possessed. She can sense the hunger for dominance without bowing to it. She can watch the labyrinth unfold and still walk her own path. This is not detachment, it is mastery. It is knowing that the male mind is both dangerous and divine, but it cannot master you unless you refuse to see it. The forbidden truths are not meant to frighten you, they are meant to awaken you, because knowledge of darkness is not weakness, it is immunity. Once you know how the shadow works, it cannot seduce you in the same way. Once you see the labyrinth, you are no longer lost in it. The woman who understands the darkness cannot be controlled by it. Today, perhaps more than ever, the male psyche is fractured between two worlds, the civilized man, disciplined and rational, and the primal man, raw and untamed. Most women meet the mask of the first but are shaken when they glimpse the second, for beneath every carefully built identity, there is a hidden landscape Jung called the shadow, the part of the psyche buried, denied, but always alive. To understand a man is not to study only his words, his gestures, or his affection. It is to see the fractures between who he pretends to be and who he cannot escape being. This is why his silence often screams louder than his speech, why his indifference feels heavier than his love. His unconscious leaks through the cracks, in his contradictions, in his obsessions, in his sudden retreat after closeness. Neuroscience tells us that suppressed emotions activate survival circuits. What is repressed in the conscious mind often burns in the unconscious body. Heart rate increases. Cortisol rises, impulses sharpen. The man who hides his fear of vulnerability may project coldness or superiority. The man who represses his longing for intimacy may erupt in obsession or rage. These are not simply moods, they are eruptions from the shadow. And you, standing near him, are not just a witness, you are a mirror. When a man encounters a woman, he is not only encountering her presence, he is encountering the parts of himself he has hidden. Jung warned that the anima, the feminine image within him, attaches itself to women he cannot fully understand. She is not loved as she is loved as the vessel of his projections. He does not see her clearly, he sees through her, into himself. This is why attraction can feel so mystical, so unexplainable. His neurons fire, his hormones surge, but beneath the biology is the archetype, the dream image that she has awakened in him. And this is where danger lives. For the woman who does not understand projection may drown beneath it. She may believe his passion is about her, when it is about the unfinished pieces of his soul. She may accept the weight of his shadow and mistake it for love. The forbidden psychology of obsession is this: a man may not be addicted to you, but to the part of himself he sees reflected in you. The mirror neurons in his brain replay your face, your voice, your movements, not because of who you are, but because of the archetype you represent. His nervous system loops on you like a record, not out of freedom, but compulsion. The brain, when caught in compulsion, cannot distinguish between truth and projection. This is why so many men confuse control with connection, dominance with love, possession with intimacy. The shadow, once triggered, seeks only to maintain its grip. It does not seek truth, it seeks survival. And obsession is survival for the shadow. Now imagine what this means in the hidden theater of relationships. A man who fears insignificance clings to dominance. A man who fears rejection withdraws first. A man who fears being consumed by intimacy sabotages closeness. Each move is a strategy, not chosen but driven. And most women, unaware of these forbidden truths, take his behavior personally, as if it reflects her worth, rather than his shadow's survival. But the awakened woman begins to see differently. She sees the withdrawal not as rejection but as fear. She sees dominance not as strength but as fragility. She sees obsession not as devotion but as projection. And with this sight, she is no longer trapped in his labyrinth. For the labyrinth is not only his, it becomes hers the moment she forgets herself inside it. Jung's great warning was that the unconscious, when ignored, rules us. The woman who ignores her own boundaries, her own sovereignty, will be ruled by his shadow as if it were her destiny. But destiny is not chains, it is choice. The forbidden truths are not meant to paint men as villains, they are meant to reveal the battlefield where love and shadow collide. For the man who confronts his darkness becomes whole, but the man who denies it forces others to carry it for him. And this is the crossroads every woman faces, to carry his shadow, or to refuse it. The woman who understands the darkness cannot be controlled by it. Has this ever happened to you? A man enters your life with intensity, almost otherworldly, and for a moment you feel as if you've been chosen by fate itself. His gaze is heavy, his words magnetic, and you sense a hunger that seems deeper than ordinary attraction. And then, just as suddenly, he pulls away, the warmth turns cold, the intimacy dissolves into distance. You are left questioning not only him, but yourself. This is not random, this is not chaos. This is the forbidden psychology of the male shadow in motion. Beneath his retreat lies a paradox that Jung and Freud both understood: intimacy awakens the unconscious. To let you close is to risk exposure. To risk exposure is to awaken fear. His shadow whispers that closeness means vulnerability, and vulnerability means danger. So he withdraws, not from you, but from the parts of himself he cannot control. From a neurological perspective, this is survival at work. His amygdala floods with signals of threat. His cortisol rises. His nervous system chooses flight over fight. He distances himself to regulate, to regain the illusion of control. Yet in doing so, he deepens the very pattern that keeps him trapped, craving intimacy, yet fearing it, pursuing love, yet fleeing when it arrives. The forbidden truth here is brutal. He does not see you as you are. He sees you as the mirror of his anima, the inner feminine he carries unconsciously. You are not just a woman, you are an archetype, a projection, a vessel through which he wrestles with his unfinished self. He desires you, yes, but even more he desires the reflection of his hidden world that you awaken in him. This is why men become obsessed with women they cannot have. It is not the woman herself, but the dream she represents. Neuroscience calls it the salience network, the brain's system for marking something as intensely important. But Jung called it projection, the act of laying the unconscious onto another. To him, the woman becomes a living symbol of the man's unclaimed soul. And yet, there is danger in this, for the woman who accepts this projection without awareness risks becoming consumed by it. She may confuse his obsession with devotion, when in truth it is need. She may see his withdrawal as punishment, when in truth it is terror. She may lose herself trying to hold together what was never hers to carry. Consider this. When a man loves from his shadow, it is not truly you he loves, it is himself, hidden within you. His passion is real, but it is misplaced. His hunger is deep, but it is not for you, it is for his own missing wholeness. The power, then, lies not in changing him, but in seeing him clearly, to see him as both man and shadow, as both mask and wound, to know that his dominance may be fear disguised, that his silence may be longing repressed, that his obsession may be projection burning. This clarity does something dangerous. It makes you immune to the spell. For most women, attraction becomes entanglement because they cannot separate the man from the shadow he casts. But when you see the shadow, you cannot be tricked by it. His hunger no longer defines your worth. His retreat no longer defines your value. His obsession no longer defines your destiny. Jung taught that the greatest power is integration, to know the shadow without being consumed by it. For men, this is the lifelong task of facing themselves, but for women, the task is different, to witness the shadow without becoming its mirror. Because the shadow always seeks to pull others into its orbit, it thrives on secrecy, projection, and control, but once you name it, once you see it, the spell is broken. You no longer dance to its rhythm, you choose your own. And in that choice, something shifts. You are no longer the vessel of his projections. You are no longer the carrier of his fears. You become sovereign, whole, untouched by the labyrinth that devours others. The forbidden truths are not meant to frighten you. They are meant to free you, to awaken you to the reality that the male mind is both magnetic and dangerous. But it cannot master you unless you refuse to see it, for sight is power, awareness is immunity. And so, the final warning becomes an invitation: learn to see without fear, to feel without being consumed, to stand before the darkness and remain yourself. The woman who understands the darkness cannot be controlled by it.